Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching, where we're going to hear from the petroleum industry. But first, what difficulty, or I'll say trouble, is the Lieutenant Governor Michael Stack in? We'll get to that. Plus, are we going to privatize the wholesale as well as the retail operations of the sale of alcohol in the state? Two of the state's leading reporters weigh in on that. We'll get to that after these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
All right, sitting across from me are two of the state's top reporters, John Micek. He's also the editorial page editor of the Harrisburg Patriot News PennLive, and Steve Esack. He's with the Allentown Morning Call. They cover all things politics and government in the state of Pennsylvania. Steve Esack, I'll start with you. The governor of the state has made no bones about it. He is not happy with the conduct of his lieutenant governor for a variety of reasons. Weigh in on a couple of those reasons.
Well, the governor made this unprecedented public statements that he's asked the Inspector General's office to investigate the Lieutenant Governor Mike Stack's conduct, as well as an extension, his wife's conduct, and the way they treated the state troopers and the staff at the mansion. Last week, the governor yanked the security detail, the state troopers. They are no longer bodyguards. They are no longer drivers of that, of both of them. And they've also told the lieutenant governor that the DGS staff will only come to the mansion upon appointment and under supervision to cut the lawn, I guess,
John's
wash the dishes.
You can't make this up.
No, I mean, you really can't. I mean, it's as Steve says, it's just extraordinary. And you know, the Department of General Services dropped off a car earlier this week that now he's just like any other cabinet secretary. He can drive himself around. It's a very strong message from Governor Wolf, and we were talking before we went on the air. He had very little choice. And the state police and the employees of the Department of General Services who take care of that stately house out at Fort Indian Gap are employees of the executive branch, and he's duty bound to look after their interests. And there's also there's political reason for him to do that as well. Democrats, party of the working man, they absolutely have to do it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now, moving forward, as you know, and many people in our audience know, that the governor and lieutenant governor run separately in the primaries. We have a vote, on each of them. Then whoever wins the primary, Republican, Democrat, Constitution, whatever party, they're linked together. You get one vote for both offices. How can Governor Tom Wolf, be on the ballot, literally, with Michael Stack after what has occurred? Does the governor have to find a running mate for lieutenant governor?
Yes, I think absolutely he does. Let's not, hide before.
Yeah.
Wolf and Stack have never really gotten along. Governor Wolf is from this area of Pennsylvania. Mike Stack is from Northeast Philadelphia. Two complete different political animals, worlds, that sort of thing. And the governor would like somebody that I think he can trust more as his lieutenant governor.
John, you've written a lot about this in the past. Regionally, he's here, South Central Pennsylvania, Governor Wolf. Doesn't he need somebody from Philly and somebody from Pittsburgh? The two biggest.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the lieutenant governor's office on its best days are kind of like your appendix. You never really think about it until it explodes on you, and that's where we are now. And we saw this in 2004, 2005, where it looked like then Governor Ed Rendell was going to try to dump Catherine Baker Knoll, his lieutenant governor, because she's prone to malaprops and awkward statements and that kind of thing. But the fact of the matter is that she gave him strong geographical balance and strong political strength in the Southwest. Wolf's up against a similar problem with Stack. He needs to find either somebody from the West or, more likely, somebody from Northeast Philly who can counterbalance Stack in some way.
Well, let's not forget. Northeast Philadelphia, huge area of police and firefighters live there.
That's another good point.
And they are not and a lot of them have voted for a Republican in the legislature for a district seat in Northeast Philadelphia. So Mike Stack has no huge base there to begin with. So I think it's going to be a suburban Democrat.
We want to get to, I want to get to alcohol. John, bills moving that would literally virtually end the state store operation if, if retail operations can buy wine and spirits from out of the state.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it is a
to sell to us.
Yeah, you have a so-called franchise license get approved. They're further freeing of the wine, as it's called. Moved out of the House, being pushed by House Speaker Mike Turzai, who wants this in the worst way. A likely governor candidate in 2018. Just by the way, the problem being is that the Senate is not particularly interested, nor is Governor Wolf particularly interested. Jake Corman, the majority leader, is saying he doesn't think it's a wise idea to simply try to balance the budget on the back of Vice, although that's never been an impediment in the past.
Good point.
But it's going to be an uphill fight. But it seems like now that it's not a matter of if, it's now a matter of when.
Of when. Good point. We're going to get out of this segment. Go ahead, make the point.
I was just going to say is the state, though, lack of a better word, is addicted to some of the money that the LCB gives the state, not just in tax money, but the LCB gives them part of their profits every year. It used to be 80, used to be 100. Now it's up to over 200 million.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about abortion and we're going to talk about guns. We'll see you in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Well, I'm talking with John Micek and Steve Esack, reporters who cover all things politics and government in the state of Pennsylvania. Well, here we go, Steve Esack. We're back to guns. Guns. Should people be able to sue cities, municipalities, in a sense, that do what?
That make tougher, stronger gun control laws than state law allows. The legislature has been pushing this bill since the state Supreme Court ruled a similar law was unconstitutional because it was mixed in with some other legislation, that sort of thing. The legislature, both Republicans and some Democrats, believe that only the legislature can set statewide laws as it relates to gun control. Some municipalities, Allentown, Bethlehem, etc., had stronger ones. And then this law would allow the NRA and citizens to sue and recoup costs, damages, if the courts have ruled that the locals couldn't do that.
And some of the groups, John, one of the groups that I read, I don't know which one of you wrote about it, but it would include groups like the NRA, correct? Yeah, and there's an argument there over whether an outside organization like the NRA should be able to have standing in court to be able to sue to overturn these ordinances. Excuse me. There is some argument to be made here that you oughtn't to have a patchwork of rules for municipalities. There's, and I am not unsympathetic to that. But when you get into cities like Philadelphia, which have a gun problem, Pittsburgh, which have a gun problem, Harrisburg, where I cover, has a gun problem. There's an argument to be made that perhaps you should allow municipal governments to have a little bit more leeway to offer tailored approaches to their individual problems. But the NRA has lawmakers so cowed that that they're falling into line on this. Now, Governor Wolf has made it clear. Did he say he intends to veto this?
He will veto that. Yes.
So what's the point? I mean,
it's really just a show for the NRA. It's a show for those who believe in the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, and really, it's the lawmakers flexing their muscles. As as John said, I'm not unsympathetic to them that believe this is our right as elected officials to do
down to the real facts in this. The point is that they don't have enough votes to override a gubernatorial veto, do they?
Not in the House, they would in the Senate.
In the Senate,
yeah.
Okay, just checking because But you're right; they're going through this to some extent because of their constituencies. That's not unusual. Yeah. All right, John, you've covered the abortion stories over your years. You've written a lot about it. Now there's an effort to defund Planned Parenthood. Who's leading it, and what's the major issue?
Right. This is a bill sponsored by Senator John Eichelberger, one of the Senate's leading social conservatives from Blair County.
Right.
It would effectively push Planned Parenthood to the back of the line for taxpayer funding, which would have the de facto effect of defunding it. We should add that no direct tax. It's already illegal, by the way, for any taxpayer money to be directly used for abortion services. The argument that critics make is that by starving Planned Parenthood of funding, you thus deny mostly low-income women to services like cancer screenings or breast cancer screenings, family planning services, birth control, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That is actually the majority of Planned Parenthood services compared to it does provide abortions, but that's the majority of the services. Right. There's a Senate Finance Committee hearing just this past Wednesday, where they moved that bill out of committee. When he was confronted during debate, Senator Eichelberger actually confessed that he was not aware of the full array of services that Planned Parenthood provides, and Twitter, as you might imagine, reacted the way Twitter would.
Is he going to back off of anything?
I can't imagine that he possibly would. I mean, this mirrors the trend, Terry, on the national level, where Congress was going to try through the Obamacare bill to defund the Medicaid expansion, thus defunding Planned Parenthood.
And we're back to the old question again. We have a governor who's
going to veto this anyway.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, and you would expect that. We have a very conservative legislature, probably the most conservative in modern history. I think you would both agree.
It's an effective political tool for both sides. Governor Wolf was out just on this. We're taping on a Thursday morning. He was out just this morning with a fundraising email to his constituents saying, "Help me fight back the evil Republicans who want to defund Planned Parenthood." It's an effective fundraising tool. And it's an effective political tool for both sides.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, before I let you go, Steve, I'll start with you quickly. The budget, it looks like they start this year closer than they have been in Governor Wolf's first two budgets, largely because it wasn't what I'd say an ambitious budget, right?
Right. That's the truth. And there really, it is very quiet in the Capitol as it relates to the budget. And I'm getting the sense that no one wants big lifts. And I don't think the Senate has the appetite for the liquor privatization stuff that's going on. But they all just want to get out of Dodge on this one.
Now, just for the record, the governor proposed a budget about 1.8% increase over the budget that was approved that currently exists in the state.
The House
and the House, a modest increase for education, but as Steve points out, no huge initiative, right?
Wolf smoothed the path by dropping his long-standing demands for personal income tax and estate sales tax increase. He's proposed the consolidation of some government agencies, which Republicans...
that's a little controversial.
It's controversial, but Republicans like the idea conceptually of shrinking the size of state government. Everyone wants to do more money for education. The question becomes, of course, how you're going to pay for that and close a, $3 billion,
and one of the things
deficit.
That he proposed, I'm going to talk about with the guests who are coming on, and that has to do with the shale tax, the severance tax. We hear that all the time. All right, great update. Thanks for coming in. All right, coming up, we're going to hear from the petroleum industry. We'll get into, should there be a nuclear bailout? What about the environmental effects? What about the shale tax, as we just talked about?
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Welcome back to the program. Well, sitting across from me is Stephanie Catarino Wissman. She's with the Associated Petroleum industry, and let's talk a little bit about a couple of subjects that are particularly important. Your industry, let's talk about the jobs that it produces.
Absolutely. Nationally, Terry, the oil and gas industry supports 9.8 million jobs, and that's 8% of the U.S. economy. Here in Pennsylvania, you're looking at tens of thousands of jobs that are supported by the oil and gas industry, not just direct jobs, but also indirect jobs. So that's everybody that's making a widget or a manufactured product that's helped support our industry directly, or whether that's some ancillary industries such as hospitality industry, you name it, anyone that would support us in any way.
So given what's going on, where there are efforts to move away from fossil fuels, carbon emissions, and all of that, in general, how would you describe the state of your industry?
Well, we are the #1 producer of oil and natural gas in the world, and that is quite the enviable position to be in. All countries' eyes are on the United States because we are sitting here. So that puts us in a very favorable geopolitical position for sure. But we do have some challenges with that, because while we're producing and have this abundant resource, we don't have the adequate capacity to get it to market, natural gas particularly. When you look at Pennsylvania, we are not keeping up with our surging production. So that's why it's critical that we get these pipelines built. Yeah. That way we can transport this resource safely to other markets, other consuming markets.
Yeah, one of the, obviously a big debate in this state is over just that, because the pipelines have to go through, some sensitive areas, some areas that have been marked off for conservation, farmland. You're very familiar with that. So how do you respond to the questions about the environmental impact of that, the possibility that, you get pipeline breakage and the spillage and, the contamination that would ensue? How do you basically reply to that?
Sure.
I'm not asking you this question for the first time.
No, I understand. I understand completely. And it's important for your audience to know that the oil and gas industry has a 99.999% safety record, which means we get that product to its final destination incident-free. Now, we're not resting on our laurels, because we want to be 100% safe in getting this product to where it needs to go. So in any instance where there is an incident, industry works together with local responders and all of the folks in the local community to take care of it as quickly and as safely as possible. Okay,
so describe, if you will, what areas of the state are mostly affected by the necessity from, as you would argue, to get these pipelines, to get the natural gas so that it can be transported around the country and into a world market.
Sure.
A couple of areas where, go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we want to take care of Pennsylvanians first. Because we have such an abundant resource, we have extra, so to speak, if you will. So after we take care of our natural gas needs here in Pennsylvania, it works for the global economy, it works for the national economy to get this resource to other regions of the country that need it, as well as taking a look at our allies abroad that don't want to rely on unstable regions of the world to get their energy supply. So that's why it's even more critical for us to be able to have that international trade with these countries. And again, it bolsters our position as being the leader in production of oil and natural gas.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about, obviously, another controversial subject. It's a tax on the amount of cubic feet extracted from the wells, otherwise known as the severance tax, a term that most of our viewers are aware of. And then something that's relatively new, or maybe it's not new, it's new to this interviewer, and that is the nuclear bailout. The bailout of the 5 power plants, if it is indeed all 5 nuclear power plants in the state of Pennsylvania. Talk to Stephanie about that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, advancing quality, improving lives.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Stephanie Wissman. She's with the Associated Petroleum Industry. Do I got that right?
Yes,
there
of
you
Pennsylvania.
Go. All right, of Pennsylvania. And we're going to talk a little bit about the severance tax. Governor Wolf has proposed it now 3 times. He
Yes.
proposed it as a candidate. Once again, he proposes that's a tax on the amount of cubic feet extracted from each well. Factually, as you know, we're the only state that does not have one that produces this deep well called fracking. We do have an impact fee, which states do not have, but we have. I won't get
Yes.
into all that. What
We like
problem,
to call it a tax, Terry.
I understand. What problem does your industry have with the shale tax? Explain that.
It comes down to competitiveness is what this comes down to. You know, and my first response is, here we go again. You know, here we go with another renewed call for a severance tax. The bottom line is, do we want investment in Pennsylvania or don't we? That's what it comes down to. And I shared with you, Terry, a chart there.
Yeah, we'll put the chart up for everybody. There you can see it in red. We have the average, which you can read, and then in the far right, explain that.
Is Pennsylvania, yes. What this chart shows is how Pennsylvania stacks up against the other oil and natural gas producing states. And what this chart shows that Pennsylvania is the most expensive state to drill a well per foot, shale well. Why is that? It's a whole host of factors. So when you take a look at other states for a variety of reasons, whether it's the depth of the well that you're drilling, the geological formation that you are developing or exploring, because geology is different depending on what state you are exploring and developing in, as well as what the tax and regulatory regime that is in place. So all of those factors come into play. Now, Pennsylvania is not a very tax-friendly state to businesses. You know, it's home to a 9.99% CNI rate, as an example. Also, Pennsylvania is known to have a very stringent regulatory program when it comes to regulating the oil and natural gas industry.
All right, before you get out of here, this is very new. 5 nuclear power plants. I didn't realize they were in any difficulty at all. Take away with that.
Last year in New York Public Utility Commission gave 0 emissions credits to the nuclear industry. What that means is for every megawatt electric generation that is generated, they will receive a 0 emissions credit paid for by the utility. So the utility will buy these 0 emissions credits for the megawatt generation, in turn pass it along to the ratepayer. So that is how they're going to get a direct subsidy. That's how they got it in New York.
Well, so you're saying that
in Illinois as well.
In Pennsylvania, they need that in order to keep functioning? Is that it,
well,
fiscally?
Take a look at the track record here. New York, Illinois, and to the tune of $7 billion over 12 years is the price tag in New York that ratepayers will pay for this bailout of the nuclear industry to keep their facilities afloat. In Illinois, it's a $13 billion price tag on the backs of the ratepayers over 10 years. There's also discussions and legislation in other surrounding states, Ohio, New Jersey, Connecticut. Pennsylvania is the only state right now that doesn't have a piece of legislation in play, but it's coming.
Okay, this is something that we're going to follow, and we'll think about where all this goes.
And it's something we're very concerned about from the natural gas perspective.
All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.